I'm out here with Tim, got the 49 Ford, and guess what? We're doing vintage air in this thing.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Stick around, summer's here, man. We gotta get some cooling going.
Yeah, exactly.
Hang on, we're about to do this thing. Well, here we are. We got Tim's truck. We're going to take it back to the open rotor garage, and we're going to put air conditioning and heating in this truck with vintage air because it's Southern California and it's hot. So if you're new to the channel, you've never seen this truck is pretty sweet. New gauges. It's got a 302. It's got Mustang 2 front suspension. It's got a Mustang rear axle, disc brakes all the way around. This is a pretty sweet truck. It's got a nice front seat. She runs and drives amazing. It really does. It's tight. We did the door seals on it. This thing drives really nice. All right, we made it back safe and sound. First thing tomorrow, we're going through those boxes, make sure we got everything we need, and then we're going to start installing. What we should have is the condenser, and we're going to play a little game and make sure that it'll get between this bar and the radiator, which it should. We got a compressor that's going to go right where the coil is, so that coil is going to have to get moved. We're going to have to figure out where the water lines come from. They come from somewhere over here on this Ford. I'm mostly a Chevy guy, but we're going to figure that out. Maybe that hose and that one, I don't know. So we can get water lines into the cab for heat. And then we're going with a under dash unit. So there's plenty of room under this dashboard for an AC unit. So we're going with an all-in-one with the vents and controls all in one unit. So that's what we're going to be doing. Yeah, this is such a cool truck.
Tomorrow for sure.
Okay, back out here in the garage. It's nice and cool this morning. We're going to try and get some stuff done before the heat kicks in and kicks our ass. So we got all the parts we got to go through, make sure we've got what we need, what we ordered. Going to go through the boxes first, and then we're going to see about getting, I think the first thing I want to get in here is the condenser, and that's the little radiator that goes in front of the radiator. And then we're going to work on moving that coil and see if we can find a spot for that coil to go, because that's where the compressor is going to go, where they mounted the coil. So we'll get that moved next. But to start with, let's get into those boxes. This is what we got. We've got our little radiator here. This is the condenser that goes in front of our car's radiator, truck's radiator. We got our mounting brackets. This is the under dash unit with wiring and miscellaneous parts. So that's going to be our venting, controls, all of that stuff. And then we've got our compressor. So let's get this thing opened up and we'll see what we got. This is, what is this? Compressor brackets. So this is what's going to mount the compressor to the engine. So this is what I want to get mounted up today. Oh, and there's our trinary switch and dryer. So that's going to be going over here. And we're going to get the stuff under the hood. So we've got our condenser, paperwork, brackets, and hardware. I just need to figure out which way to mount this. Looks like the big fitting is at the top and the little one, but it doesn't really say. And we're going to get this mounted up in here. I really need some brackets or lines. Once this thing's in place, it's going to be absolutely impossible to get to those lines. So I may have to go get some fittings. Have to look at that. One thing about this bracket right here, this bar, is it's riveted. It's not, this is not bolted in place. That's a rivet. So this bar cannot come off of the front. So that's fun. So it does slide in. I tested it before I even took it out of the packaging. It does fit in between the radiator and that bar. There's just enough space, but yeah. I went ahead and put this piece of cardboard that came with that condenser in front of the radiator, so when I'm taking this thing in and out, I won't damage it. I think what I'm going to do later today, I'm going to run out to the radiator shop and I'm going to have them crimp me up a fitting for this and this with the hoses on it. And that way, once this thing is in place and bolted, the hoses are going to make their direction. Probably mount them along this firewall. Let's get some light on in here. Mount it along this fender well, over to the firewall, and then through the firewall over to where we're going to be mounting. That way, when this thing goes in, the hoses are already done and into there, and then they can crimp them at the other end. We can disconnect them. We can do whatever we want, but realistically, I really want this thing mounted and the lines in there permanent. There's really no way other than for those lines to come up over the top, and that'll be that. All right, let's work on that. So when Tim bought this truck, it was somebody's project. Like we tend to do, we find somebody's project and we put it back together or get it up, finished and on the road. And when we started working on this thing after he got it, we found that basically this thing was just mocked up. It really wasn't a driver per se. It was just mocked up, and everything was loose underneath it. All the suspension was loose. All, bolts were just hand tight. The fenders were loose. It had a bunch of broken bolts, and we've gone through this truck top to bottom, front to back, and tightened stuff up. But there are still things that are loose. This bolt here, part of the radiator bracket, is loose. The one below it, no, one below it seems tight. I'm going to have to hit this stuff with a wrench as we go through and just check things to make sure they're tight. So I went and covered up the front of this so we're not scratching it, the condenser, so we're not scratching it on this bar. We got the radiator protected. I want to make sure, it's not a show truck. Tim does take it to shows, but we want to do a nice job. We don't want to scratch up all the new parts, because this thing's going to be going in and out of there quite a few times. I got to work out where all the mounting is going to go, and then yeah, it's got to go in and out a bunch of times. I just don't want to scratch it all up so it doesn't look like hell when we're done. All right, let's go ahead and try and slip this thing in there. I do need a little tape at the bottom. In there. Okay. It's definitely tight. Having the cardboard in there makes it even tighter. Now what I can do is I can loosen these. There's a bolt right here and on the other side, which would allow me to tilt the radiator that direction. Man, this hood's going to be fun. Which I think I'm going to have to do. I think I'm going to loosen these and just slightly tilt the radiator just to make life a lot easier. Let's do that. Just going to back those out just so we can get a little bit of space. Okay, that gives us the space we need to get in and out of there a lot easier. So we're going to put a spacer in there, hold it in place, keep that thing out of our way. Alright, I went and put a little piece of cardboard right there just to push this radiator back and see if it gives us any space. Okay, nice and easy. And in we go. Of course, we've got a sensor over here that we got to deal with. There's a temperature sensor for the fans. I'm gonna have to move that. But that does give us the space we need to get in and out. Let's go ahead and move this sensor out of the way. And we'll put that back here in a minute or later on. Let's just put this up here so we don't forget it. Okay. Now let's see what happens when we put this sucker in. Perfect. Beautiful. So this should probably go all the way to the bottom, I would think, because that's our clearest flow through the radiator is the bottom. Now, this truck does have vents in the hood, but the majority is down here. You can see the radiator sits up real high to take advantage of these vents, which is nice. And then you've got the grill down here. So I'm thinking we're going to put that as low as we can. As you can see, that bracket runs right into where that fitting is going to be. So we're going to have to see what that fitting looks like. And then we're going to have to bring that hose up and over. So we're going to have to get a U-turn, I think, for that. All right, let's look at what these brackets are going to look like. They're going to hold this thing in place. So these brackets can go a bunch of different ways. It's looking like something like that. It's pretty good. We can put one there, and we got one. Looks like we could do at the bottom. It'll be a little bit more tricky. Gonna have to come in through the bottom, through the spider webs. This is a ranch truck. It does sit outside under a cover. This thing does get driven. This is not like a powder puff girl. This truck is a working truck. It goes to Lowe's. It picks up supplies for the ranch, and it is used as a truck. It just happens to be in 1949, but it's still in service. Ideally, I think I want my bolts on the front of that, so we may have to put some spacers. I don't want it touching the radiator, and I don't want the hardware touching the radiator, so we may have to massage these brackets a little. I don't want it touching the bracket, and we may put some rubber isolators in between that bracket just to keep it from touching. I do have some little rubber stickums I can put on the front of this thing, and it'll keep it, it'll rubber isolate it so it's not touching that. Okay, so that's where we are with that. I'm gonna have to go get the hoses. I wonder if I could space this radiator back and just leave it back, just so there's space back there. I might do that, put a nut between it, and then space that thing back and just leave it back so there's enough room for this thing. All right, well, we're going to play with that. Okay, I think I'm going to look at where the mounting is under the dash, get an idea of where that's going to go, where the fittings are for that, so I can take some measurements and then go get these things crimped up with the hoses all the way through. And then I can get this thing permanently mounted, and we'll know exactly where it's going to go with the fittings and where the hoses are going to go to clear this crossbar. Let's go work on that. Here's our main unit that we decided to go with, and I'll tell you, that is smaller than I thought. This thing is super condensed. That's heated and air conditioning all in one. Look at the size of this thing. It is tiny. There is going to be such space saving inside. All your controls are on here, your vents. I mean, this cab is absolutely tiny. Got all of our wiring, relays, everything we need. Very cool, man. This is a condensed little package. Yeah, this thing is really small. It's going to go right up in here. I'm going to have to work some things out. It's not going to be able to be centered in the middle of the dash because there's a handle underneath here that operates the hood vent or the cowl vent. So it's not going to be able to be centered, I don't think. And we got a few things to move, but this thing is absolutely tiny. The next thing I'm going to do is move these bolts that hold the bottom of the glove box in place. Those things are just kneecappers in an accident, so.
Who are you? We are the knights who say... No.
I'm going to move those, flip them upside down so they're not sticking down, and then we can work more in the cab. So the next question is, where are we coming through the firewall? Seems like this side over here is the best. I think those two big bolts right there, those two chrome bolts, are the battery tray. So it's either got to be to the right of the battery tray or under it. Let's take a look in the engine compartment. Yeah, those two bolts are definitely it, and the battery hangs lower. There's our transmission dipstick, so we got to miss that. And we got two bolts for the hood. There's a threaded screw sticking out there. Let's see if we can find that. Man, it would be nice. It would be nice to go in somewhere over here, high enough to get, not have to see the lines under the dash, but not too low. Let's see what the other side looks like again. See if we can find this screw right there. Okay, so that one screw, that sheet metal screw, is what's holding the carpet up. Gives us an idea. So directly above that is pretty good. We got 4 lines that got to come through. We got 2 hot water lines and the 2 air conditioning lines. And they got to clear all of this stuff. Man, I might put in a bulkhead. Okay, off camera, I went ahead and spaced out these bolts here. I just put a nut in between to give that a little bit of a cock backwards, and then we've got enough space now. We could always adjust it more. I could move the bottom bolts, and we can move that back a little bit more if we have to. We got plenty of space behind the radiator. So, but I want to keep it nice and tight, and yeah, that should work. Very good. The next thing is to find out where we're going to put the dryer, and I got to assemble the trinary switch bracket and dryer, and that is most likely going to go right over here, somewhere along this wall. I went ahead and cleaned this. Let's get some light over here. I went ahead and cleaned this panel so we can see where everything's going to go. Ideally, it would be nice to get all the hoses tucked in sweet and then over to that side over there. But right now we're going to find a place for the dryer and see if we can get it right in here. Okay, we finally found some wiring diagram here. Here's our dryer and parts. So this is going to go on that fender, I think. We're going to look over all this and figure out where everything's going to go. The plan is to put the dryer right here, away from all the bolts and other items that are in this area. Give us space. It clears the top of the radiator support. So that lower hose is what's going into the dryer. This is the high pressure line, and the smaller hose is the high pressure line. This is the return line. That will go through into the cab uninterrupted. So we got to go get this thing mounted here. We got the dryer mounted. Ow, that's gonna hurt this entire build. This hood doesn't go up very far. Ow. So, we got the dryer mounted right here. It's gonna be a direct line. Jesus, that thing. Across, down, into that lower fitting, and then this fitting will have to loop around and go up right behind it, out over to the firewall. I also went ahead and tightened up this bolt, and as it turns out, all three of them, the next one down and all three down to the bottom, were loose. This side, I tightened the top one, the bottom one was tight. So yeah, the radiator support wasn't bolted down. We are making headway. I ran over to our local hot rod shop here in town, DMP in Northridge, and had him make up a high pressure line for me so I can now go from the bottom here over to our dryer. And this is going to help us work out where this fitting is going to go. I did pick up a fitting over here, right here, that we're going to try and see if we can make the angle. So let's try that. We might be able to get away with either this and a slight bend in the hose and make that corner, or we may have to go this way so it points this direction and loops around. There are no U-shaped turns in this, so I may have to loop up and over that direction and just be tied off in a couple locations. I think what I'm going to do is work on getting this unit mounted so I can make full, calculate how long of a run I need to make on these hoses so I can have this hose made. And then, yeah, I think we're good. Doing a little work under here. I moved the ground wires over to the side. They were right underneath where the unit's going to mount. So that's now mounted over here. Where am I at? I moved that from over here to over there, so there's nothing underneath for our mounting surface, and we can get the unit as far towards the driver's side as possible. I need to button up some of that wiring, but yeah, I think we can start fitting. Oh, I also bent this handle. This handle works the cowl vent that's up here. Get a view of it. This cowl vent, I had to bend that handle because it would have been right behind the AC unit. So now it's straight down. It used to stick out at an angle. So that's out of the way, and I think that we can see if we can get this thing up in here and at least take a look and see what it's going to look like. The hard part's going to be propping it up so I can mark it and get the holes drilled, and then I got to find a place for the rear strap. So here's the unit here. I went ahead and mounted the brackets on it, and then this here goes somewhere on the back and hangs from above, so we're gonna have to work that out. There's the bracket on the back. This is going to be tricky. There is literally nothing underneath there to mount to other than the sheet metal of the cowl, which I don't want to do, but we might be able to get away getting into this rubber area. The rubber is held in place with these little pins, and I can see those pins underneath, so it's possible to maybe drop some screws underneath this rubber. We just don't want to be able to see anything. We don't want to see any hardware or anything, so we'll figure that out. Working under the dash here, working on these mounts, and what I've done is I put a nut sert in right here, and that's going to hold the front. I'm going to measure and put a nut sert in over here, and that is going to be our front mounting, so that's going to make life easier. If we have to service this thing, we can just pull a couple screws and it's going to go right back in. It's not a problem. And then we're going to work on the back bracket. We are making headway. I got one nut sert mounted on that end, and as it turns out, the glove box bolt that was hanging down before lined up perfectly for it, so I just used it for that as well. So the unit is not centered in the dash. There just simply wasn't enough space because we got this little handle right here which opens the cowl vent, and you got to be able to get your hand through there. But Tim was okay with that, so, but it's pretty good. From the driver's position, you can see there's a lot of space. Each person's going to get 2 vents, and they're pointed directly at you. I think it's pretty good. Like I said, you can reach the knobs pretty easily. The unit is a lot smaller than I thought it would be. I mean, there is a lot of room in here. On the passenger side, there is, for a small truck, there is a lot of space. It doesn't take up a lot of space. I have to say, they did a really good job on this unit. I gotta get that strap in the back to hold this thing in place. I made an extension strap. I'm going to try and go up to the top of the cowl and hang it down below and see if we can get this back end hung. Right now it's just blocked up. To make life easier, I went ahead and pulled out the glove box. And now you can see that strap back there. We got, get some light, that strap right there. So we got to extend that up to the top and somehow attach that to the cowl. So I made a strap extension. I got that clamped in place right there, and that goes up to the top of the cowl right in front of that opening. Let's look at where that would be. That would be right in front of this ducting right here in this area, and I'm thinking maybe I could put a couple pop rivets through right here, and it'll be underneath the rubber and you won't even see it. These rubbers are held in with a nail. There's a little nail that presses in, and that's what holds it in. And that's how they did it in 1949. But I'm thinking a couple pop rivets, you won't even see it. A little bit of silicone or something on there to keep it from leaking, and that'll be the end of it. I mean, geez, these nails right here aren't sealed at all. It is under the hood, and I think this is just to keep dirt and grease and everything coming through the windshield, up to the windshield. But yep, that's what I'm thinking about doing. So now the unit's got to come out. I take out the 2 bolts that hold it in, and then we'll get the bracket attached to the other one, and then we can work on somehow getting those holes drilled. I haven't figured that out yet. Unit's back out, and this is what we look like. That's our measurement. So we're going to go ahead and bolt that up to there, and then we can work on the top. There's our bracket extended. I went ahead and pop riveted him. That'll be fine. I didn't want to have to drill a bunch of holes and nuts, bolts, and screws. That just screws onto the back of the unit. And we're going to have to figure out that top. I don't know how. Well, we're going to figure it out. Alright, let's see if we can film this. So here's the problem I got. So this is going to go up here. You can see those nails I was talking about. There's one right there. There's a nail. There's a nail. And that's where the rubber goes. So we want to put this right here, right where those lines are. I marked it when it was, whoops, got to film what I'm actually looking at. I put some lines in it. That's where it's going to go. I did that when the unit was in. So I got to put a line across side to side of where the nails are to show center point of that rubber grommet on the outside of the rubber seal. I can't pop rivet this in because then I can't take the unit out, because I have to put the bolts on right here on the back of the unit before it goes in. So somehow I've got to be able to put bolts through this after the unit's in, probably from the top. That is my dilemma. So we're going to get this marked up.
Day 2.
We are back. Day number 2, working on Tim's 1949 Ford F100 with a AC install. So last night, pondering what I have worked on yesterday and that strap that I was working on to hold the unit up, the back of the AC unit in the cab, I thought about it and then took it all apart and redesigned it. Let me show you what I did. All I did was basically change the ends. So instead of the bent end on this strap, I used the factory one. This is a stronger, thicker metal. It's going to hold its bend shape better. And then pop riveted it back into this spot. Re-drilled some holes. I just wanted the stronger bend to hold at the top against the cab. That's the way it was designed to be. Basically, just in case you hit a hard bump, the weight of the unit is going to pull down. Gravity is going to pull it down. Chattering down the highway. We got really bad roads here in Southern California, and even worse where Tim works in that end of the Los Angeles area. So I want this thing secure and mounted to the cab. We're going to put the 2 bolts through the back of the unit here, and then we've got a nice strong elbow, and this is the way it was designed. So we put our pop rivets back in here. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think we've got enough strength now. It should be so bolted into the truck it shouldn't be a problem, but just in case he hits some, really big potholes or a big dip in the road or something, it should be secure. So yeah, a little bit of re-engineering. Went ahead and did that off camera, and now we're going to drill holes in the cab. I went and marked under the cab. And then we're going to drill holes up underneath this rubber right here. And so you won't be able to see it. They'll be hidden right around here. So now we've got the holes drilled. I drilled them from the bottom up from underneath. And then we're going to drop some screws in and get that bracket mounted. And I think what I'm going to do is I got some O-rings. I think I'm going to put an O-ring on the top and bottom of that. Probably overkill, but we don't want water coming in. So I got a few O-rings on there. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up as best I can. So hopefully we can get a seal on that. I think the hardest part of all of this is going to be getting the unit up underneath and then getting these screws lined up, because I really can't see underneath the truck in that area. Whew, it is warm today. What are we looking at in here? Whew. 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It's toasty.
Kind of hot in these rhinos.
We've now got the bracket on, all bolted back on. We've got our extension. We're going to try put this thing in the car and see, or in the truck, and see if we can get screws into this darn thing, because there's almost no access underneath and it all has to come from the top. So this is going to be fun. We're going to try putting it in, get the front mounted, and see if we can hang the rear. Managed to get it back in. Whew, man, that is just not easy as a one-man job. Okay, so now we got to get that bracket up in there and get those screws through. Okay, wow, it is hot in here. I managed to get those 2 screws in. That was not easy. That was 45 minutes of fighting to get the screws down, lined up. I had to use a little pick to get it lined up. I got one in and then struggled to get the other one in, but I managed to do it. And we're about to take the wood blocks out and see if this thing holds itself up and see how secure it is. Very nice, I will say that. It is very rigidly mounted. There is no movement at all. I don't believe there's going to be any rattling. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. That strap, there we go. That strap is now locked in place. And whew, that was meant to be really easy in case I needed to take it out. But of course, like everything, you're working under the table here. But that's pretty good. Now I can still access all the plumbing right there, which is really nice. So the center 2 here are water lines for the heater. Upper is the low pressure, lower is the high pressure. So I can finally measure and see how long the hoses are that I need to have made. So with the unit mounted inside, we can move over to the inside of the engine compartment. Now what I just went and did is I went and ordered a Vintage Air bulkhead pass through. I just don't see any other real way. I'm going to have to do 2 passages at a time. I'm going to do, I think, 2 up there and 2 over here, and then 90s on the inside to get over to the unit. So I ordered the high pressure and low pressure line. We're going to start there. and we'll worry about the water later. The next thing we're going to do is move this coil. Right now it's only held on by one bolt, and I'm thinking about putting it right here in that one bolt hole. And this thing needs to be cleaned. Yeah, so we're going to I think we're going to try and put a bolt right there and move the coil up into that area. It's not much space, but we'll see if we can get it in there, because right here is where the compressor is going to go. That's the next thing we're going to work on. So let's see if we can get a bolt that'll go down inside that hole right there. Okay, so we got the coil out of there, working around the carburetor, and found us a vacuum leak, little plug knockoff, so we got to replace that. But yeah, we're going to try and find a new place for that coil.
Day 3.
Day 3, we are back on Tim's truck here. Now we are trying to figure out a few things I want to show you. The next thing I'm working on is getting the compressor mounted to the engine, and one of the things I've come across is this bolt hole right here that's got a plug in it. Oh shit. Is that welded in? It's epoxied in. Looks like it's been leaking. I think that is a oil journal or an oil passage that for machining purposes, but either way, that's the bolt hole I need to use, that one right there that's got the Allen head, to mount the bracket. So I'm going to have to take that out, but I think that's an oil gallery from the machining process, and it looks like I didn't see that before, but it looks like somebody has epoxied that in. That is going to be fun. Gotta take that out, and then we're gonna get the compressor mounted to that. So that's what's on today's list. Now, we did move the coil. The coil was right there. We got to find a place for the coil somewhere up here, I'm guessing. I don't know. We're gonna figure that out today. Let's give this a shot. Let's see if this thing will come out. Oh, we need a rag. And there goes the light. Oh my God, spider webs everywhere. Again, the spider lives. The spider lives. He has built a full home underneath Tim and his spider webs. All right, here we go. See if this thing is even gonna move. Okay. Oh yeah, no problem. No problem. There's a big hole. That's bigger than the socket. It is dry behind it. Let's bring this over and show you. It is dry behind it. Not an oil passage, but I don't know if the bolt is that size. May have to go get another bolt, so we'll take a look. So this is the bolt that's supposed to hold that in, and obviously that's bigger, so may have to go get a helicoil, may have to go get a bigger bolt, and drill out the bracket for that to go into. So I think this is actually exhaust. Now, I had read something that the 302 Fords, this is a 1973, had smog stuff on it. This could be an exhaust port that is part of like air injection or some nonsense, because that's ash. Looks like ash. That could be an exhaust port that's tapped into the head. I honestly don't know that much about Fords, but that's the bolt, and that's what we're going to need. So let's take another look with the bracket in place now. So this is what we're looking at. This bracket is going to go right here, if I can get this right here, and then where this went is in that third hole. We're going to have to go get a bolt for that. I don't know if we can get a helicoil. That would be ideal. Get a helicoil to screw in there, and then the bolt to go in, but it's exhaust. It's just, I'm thinking it's exhaust, but we could drill that out, but there's not a lot of material here. If we went up to that size, I suppose it's leave some. Yeah, I think that'd be okay. Just go get a bolt this size and length, well, double that length, and then and it looks like it's pretty long inside, so Looks like we're not going to have a problem there. I got 2 size bolts to hold that thing in, and one is too long and one is too short. We got to go get the one that's just right. So that one is too long because this bolt bottoms out. I may have to run a tap through here. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, that dead ends right there. And then with that on there, it's just a little too long. Probably could take a grinder to it, but I don't want to. I'll just go get some bolts, because we got to go get a bolt for this one anyways. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and paint this bracket and then run to the hardware store and get some hardware. I went ahead and hit this with some degreaser and washed it all off, dried it, and now we're going to hit this thing with some paint. All right, all painted, all the brackets on the adjuster. All right, off to the hardware store. All right, returned from the hardware store, went and got a big bolt to plug that port that I unplugged, that Allen screw plug, and some thread seal to put on that high temp. So it's going to plug that hole, and some correct length bolts for the bracket. Those were too long because they dead end into the head, and the others were too short. So that should do it. Let's just see if this bolt actually threads into this hole here. It better. Yep. No problem. Be interesting to see how far it goes in. Straight until it hits a valve. We may have to cut this thing down. This was the only length that they had. Yeah, that might go right all the way into the damn exhaust port. So yeah, we may have to cut this bolt down. They didn't have any other smaller than this, so we'll just have to cut it down. Yeah, that damn near goes into the exhaust. Well, let's find out how far it does go in. Well, that's it. That's how far it goes down. So either I got to cut it or I got to make a spacer to go behind it. We'll see what we can do. Perfect. Got it. Now we just got to drill out the plate that we just painted. But that's all right. Put a hole in that size, and then we can get that plate mounted up. All right, working on drilling out this hole. The step drills brought it up pretty close, but I got to get that little notch out of there, so I got to find a much bigger drill, and I'm not sure if I do. If I have one, or I'll have to flip it over. Okay, I ended up finishing it with a hand drill and a file, but we got it all cut out, and we can now try fitting this thing into the truck. Here's a pro tip. If you're tired of looking for your key for your chuck, always leave it in the drill press. Attention, do not listen to this idiot if you want to live. So both of these holes here were full of junk, and this one was actually crooked. When I put the screws in, I could see it wasn't straight, so I've run a tap through both of these holes, and I think they're going to be fine. This is the game we got to play. Okay, so the bracket's in place. I got the distributor cap moved here, and I got to work on getting the carburetor feed line, the fuel line, massaged into a better spot. So let's do that. Okay, I know all the Ford guys in the comment section are losing their minds because I said I was going to put the coil up here, but they do go on the front of the motor on either side. I went and had some looks online. It was where the pedestal is now, but I've seen them on both sides of the engine. So I'm going to see if I can mount it right there, and that seems to be the happy spot. I will have to extend one wire over to here, but it's not a big deal. Let's do that. Mounted. I ended up having to run a tap through that bolt as well because it was full of debris and garbage, but we did get it mounted, and now we got to run the wires over. I'm going to have to extend one wire from the other side, but we're going to do that right now. Get this all buttoned up. We're going to get the carburetor hose buttoned up and get a new filter on there, get all this top of this motor buttoned up, and then we're going to put the compressor on. All right, we have now got the coil moved, the hot wire extended. We've moved over the coil wire from the center of the cap over to this side. The coil is done. I rerouted the gas line over here. The gas line is now coming up from the fuel pump. It goes past everything. I got to go get a new fuel line. It's going right here, some gas line and a new fuel filter. I just want to do that while we're in here. Yeah, things are coming along pretty good. It is now time to dig the compressor out and see about getting that in place. And then we're going to have to get that pulley off, and we're going to have to go get a double roll pulley for the water pump. And there's our compressor. Let's see if this thing is even going to sit on the plate it's got to go to. And there's the compressor mounted in place. As you can see, we got to get another belt groove for the water pump pulley, but yeah, pretty good. Pretty happy with that. We're going to get that bolted down, and then we're going to head over to DMP, my local hot rod shop, and see if I can get me a pulley. Got us a new fuel line, or a new fuel filter. I skipped the fuel line. It looked okay, so we're just going to run with that. Go ahead, put the air cleaner on, and I think the motor is pretty much so buttoned up until we get that lower pulley. And then once we get the pulley and belts on this thing, this is back to being a driver, and then we're going to work on getting this up front here buttoned up. And then we're moving on to wiring. Wiring is next for tomorrow. Well, looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that.
Day 4.
All right, it's day 4. Working on Tim's 1949 Ford F100 AC install. Let's get us up to speed on where we're at. We've got the AC unit installed, hard mounted. Nothing's connected to it, no wiring just yet. We've got the dryer in place. We've semi-mocked up the condenser. We're still working on that. The big one here is we've got the compressor in place and the mounting bracket. That was a bit of a bear. We have ordered a new pulley for the water pump that's going to give us 2 belt positions, one for the alternator and one for the compressor. And today we're going to be working on the wiring inside the cab. So we've got to figure out where all this wiring goes in here, get it all routed, and then the final step will be getting it plumbed. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to take it to the AC shop and just drop it off and let them get all the plumbing done. We moved the coil to the other side of the engine to make room for the compressor. We got a new fuel filter, rerouted the fuel line, and extended a wire to the coil. But right now, we got to get into this wiring. There's a lot of wiring here. No idea what any of this is. We know that's the main power. Gonna get all this unwrapped, stretched out. We'll have a look at the paperwork and see. Everything's aluminum around here. And see where all this stuff's got a route. I think we're going to have to drill a hole in the firewall and get some of this stuff out. We'll see. I mean, we definitely got to get to the battery for main power. So there's our relays. Yeah, here's our fuse, main fuse. Looks like that's going to go possibly to the compressor. Probably a ground. No idea what this stuff is. Maybe we should go read the instructions and figure this out. Okay, so here's our instructions. It's pretty straightforward. We're just going to go through this one wire at a time and start getting things connected. First thing we got here is the power wire. Take this boot off. We're going to disconnect this wire here at this end. It's going to go through the firewall and then reconnect it, and we'll put that end on the battery. There is a grommet right here that goes to a wire to this battery. I've never really been thrilled with that location. I'm going to try and tidy that up. Probably put some black, wire loom stuff over it, but I don't want to drill unnecessary holes, so I think we're just going to use it and yeah, we'll run the wire through right there. So there was already a hole in the firewall right down there where I mounted that. I went ahead and used that, and then we've got that hard mounted. It's kind of nice. It's underneath the battery. You don't really have to see that. And of course, I'm going to button up all that wiring. That's the passage we got. That's the passage we're going to use. Power wire connected to the battery onto the ground wire. We've now got the wiring all buttoned up. I got it zip tied up here so you don't see the big bundle, and you can't see nothing here in the dark. Hang on, let me get a light. So you don't see, where's the light? You don't see anything hanging down. This stuff here, this big bundle of white wires, that is the controller for the water to bring the hot water into the cab and into the unit. That we're going to install at a later date. We're just going to tuck it up for right now. The ground wire is in place with all the ground wires right there. If we can get it, yeah, there's the ground wires and that screw. Yeah, so that's what we've got. We're almost down to it. We've now got the wire run to the compressor.
One eternity later.
All right, it is day 5, and we are still working on this truck. We got a few things to do. I'll show you what I'm working on. So I ordered the bulkhead for the pass-through of the high and low pressure lines. We're going to get these in place and try and find a spot over in this area. We talked about that, but we got to finalize that. I want to get this thing mounted, the condenser, find a spot. I'm going to raise it up, put it along here somewhere a little bit higher. Get all that cardboard and paper and stuff out of there, so that's hard mounted. We still got to find the route for, or find the connection point for the fan wire. I got to get into all this wiring over here, and yeah, I think we're getting pretty close. Okay, off camera I went ahead and pulled out the condenser and put the brackets on it, top and bottom. So now I can hang this at the top, and then we'll go work out the bottom and see if we can get those screws in. That's going to be fun. We got the top in. The bottom's going to be a bit more challenging. It's behind the grill. It's down here, and nothing lines up, and it's all going to be impossible. Okay, did some work off camera to get this condenser mounted. Let me show you what I did. I did get bolted up here like before, but I got it centered down here. Let me get a light. I got the brackets to the side of the fender wells here, and then over to the bottom where that screw is. This thing won't focus, but you get the idea. That on both sides, and it's pretty secure. I'm pretty happy with that. So we can go ahead and take this paper and cardboard out, and that part is done. There it is, looking pretty good. And we put our sensor back through. So that's all buttoned up, and since I had it all protected, there's no scratches in it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Happy with that. And because I'm super OCD, I went and fixed the radiator fins so it looks good. Gotta look good for Tim. Timmy! Now the plan is to get the bulkhead drilled through, but we got to make sure that we can clear those springs that are right above it. So we got a camera in the engine compartment. Let's put us a flashlight. And let's see where this thing goes when the hood's closed. Okay, I think that's going to work out fine. I'll probably ask the AC guy to put angles down at a 45 degree and then along this fender, and then that should be good. Next step is to mark this and drill it out. I had to do some finessing off camera, but we got it all in place now and locked in. That looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that. So that'll be our high and low pressure, and then we'll just have to find passageways for the water, but we're going to deal with that at a later date. Maybe directly above it, I don't know. Okay, we've done some stuff off camera we're going to talk about. I wired up the trinary switch. All those wires come through, and they go through some conduit that's down underneath here, all the way around to this side, and over to the fan, and over to the compressor. All that's done, wired into the cab. We now have power in the cab. So when we turn the key on, the fan blows, all that good stuff. I went ahead and buttoned up the wiring underneath the dash. It was all hanging down and looked like hell. Put down a little bit of conduit over here, and it's still a mess, but it's better than it was all hanging down. That was just terrible. I've now got the drain lines in, so the condensation drains come from both sides and those route out underneath the truck. That pops out the firewall right there and over the side of the frame, and it's just zip tied to the side of the frame and dumps out right there on the ground. All that is left is we need that pulley for the water pump so we can run dual belts, and then we gotta get the belts and then tighten up the compressor and of course readjust the belts and all that good stuff. After that, it's just off to the AC shop and it's done. I think I'm gonna have them do the water lines. I think it would just be easier. I'm not exactly sure which water lines. I know that one black plug right there is one of them, but I'm not sure the other. So I'm going to talk to them and see if they'll just do it and be done with it. Give them the grommets and they can handle it all. It's been a hot week here in Southern California. Whew. 5 days on this thing and super hot, and today is really humid. Kind of got a monsoon thing going on, and yeah, it's pretty warm, but I'm pretty happy with the way this has turned out. It's looking real good. I think Tim's going to be happy. Timmy! I ended up cutting off like all the zip ties in this engine compartment and redoing them all because they were just like razor blades.
You must walk barefoot across a floor covered in razor blades.
Somebody didn't cut the edges off. They didn't cut them flush, and I just was slicing myself up, and I said no more, and I just cut them all off and replaced them because I was tired of scratching myself. I'm really happy with the way this is coming along. So once this thing goes to the AC shop and comes back, I got to put in the glove box, and that wiring right there is the valve that runs the water on and off switch. Is a manual valve or an electronic valve that turns the water on and off to flow through the system. So once that is all connected, that wiring will be all buttoned up. But that's about it for right now.
Tomorrow.
We're back at it, day 6, and I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and drill the water lines to go through the firewall so we can get all this prepped up to head to the AC shop. So let's get on that. I've already gone ahead and marked where I'm going to pass through just above the AC lines. You can kind of see a circle there and a dent. Also, we've got this valve that's got to be placed over here. This valve is electronically controlled, and it opens and closes to let the water flow through the cab. I'm thinking about putting it over here somewhere. We've got to tap in to the engine right over here somewhere, and I'm thinking this is probably going to be a good place. I've got to get this white cable. It's down here on the floor. I got to get this through the firewall as well, this connector. So we're going to play with that, and then once that's in, that's really it. That I'm going to have the AC shop attach it to the engine. I don't want to deal with that. Talk to Tim. He doesn't have a problem with that, but I figured I should at least prep it all up. I'll probably go get some water line and run it from the heater core all the way over to here, and then just leave it hanging in the engine compartment, and he can make the connection at the AC shop. But that'll all be finished before it even gets there. So I got to get these holes drilled and these grommets in for the hose to pass through. What I have is this big step drill, and then this big pair of, this is like a pair of scissors that slices through. So you put the bolt through, you tighten the nut, and this just slices the hole perfectly clean. These are really great. So let's do that. Okay, we got one hole drilled. I'm going to go ahead and put that through, and then we'll put the scissors on the other side and draw it through. All right, here we go. Slice this thing through. Let's get the edge off. Bingo. There's one. And just like that, now we got 2 holes. So you're probably wondering, Chris, how are you going to get that wire through? So my plan is to put another little grommet here, 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 maybe down here somewhere. And I'm going to drill through for the grommet. Then I'm going to pass that connector through, take this grommet back out, pass that connector through for the valve, the electronic valve that sends the water through to the cab. I'm going to put a slice down here so I can sneak the wires into this little grommet, and then the wires will pass through the little grommet, because right now there's no real way to get that connector through this little tiny hole. Using this little reciprocating saw, it's a pneumatic reciprocating saw, I went ahead and zipped a little passageway so I can pass that connector through the large hole and then down to the little one, and then over to our valve that's going on the fender here. Got the connector through. I'm going to have to put a slice in this grommet, put it around the wire, and then we'll insert that into the hole we've cut. There we go. Put a slice in it, and we've got around that. We're going to get those wires into that hole. And there we go. We've got the 3 holes in, and we've got our wire passed through. So this can come over here and go to that valve. Now we got to go get some water hose and get that all connected inside, pass through, and then we can get that valve mounted. We also have to attach a ground wire. There's 1 wire left, a ground wire right here. So we're gonna have to find a spot for that. Okay, whew, man, it is another scorcher today. So I ran to the store, got some stuff that I need. I need 2 90-degree elbows and some water hose. Let me show you what I did. I now have the water hoses going through the firewall, and they're all zip tied and clamped in place, and they're going to the unit. I've also buttoned up the wiring and attached the ground wire. The last wire inside the cab, that's all complete. Let's go look at the engine compartment. We've now got the water lines coming through, and we've got the AC lines down there. And you might be wondering, why did I put the water lines up high? And that's because they can flex a little bit more. Those AC lines, not so much. I'm going to try and ask them to put 45s on it to angle them down to the fender well, and then everything's going to come over to this area. We still got to put that valve in there for the water, so when you turn on the AC, the valve opens and lets water go through the system, and keeps it from flowing when, you know, it's summer. You don't want hot water going through the system. So all right, let's see if we can get that valve mounted up. So now I've mocked up where I'm going to drill the holes to mount the valve. I'm going to made a template off of the valve with this piece of paper. I'm going to drill through those holes, and then I've taken the tire off on this side so I can run screws through this side through the fender well. And there we go. We've got the valve now mounted. Just got to get the hoses connected to it. Okay, well, we ran into a little bit of a snag. The guy at DMP was not able to find the double-ribbed pulley that we need. So I went ahead and put this thing back together, got it fired back up. God, this thing runs so good. It's just amazing. 2 stomps on the pedal, hit the key, and it's instantaneous startup. This thing hasn't run in a week. Amazing, this little 302. So I need to search and see if I can find this double row pulley. I'm going to search over at Summit and a couple other places. But right now it's all put back together. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it back to Tim's, grab the Chevelle, bring that home, and then we'll figure it out from there. And then it's just a matter of swapping out a pulley, putting on 2 belts, and taking it to the AC shop. But it's completely bolted together and pretty much so done, except for the high and low pressure hoses that need to be made by the AC shop. And the water lines need to be connected to the engine, but I'm leaving that for the AC shop. And that's about it. I'll let you know what's next. So we're taking Tim's truck back to him for right now till we get that pulley worked out. I'm going to show him what we've done to the truck and see what he thinks. Well, the Chevelle is back in the garage. Tim's happy with what he's got. We'll work on that pulley and belt system. So I ordered a light the day I started on Tim's truck so I could see under the hood and under the dash. And it kept getting delayed and kept getting delayed. And now the job is done, the light is here. Wonderful. Okay, the pulley has been ordered. I got it from Summit, gave them a call. Guy looked it up and instantly was able to find it. Ordered that sucker, and it will be here very soon. So stick around for part 2. I'm sorry to cut this up. It was already a really long video, but as soon as I get the pulley, we're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to get Tim's truck back over here. We're going to get that pulley put on. We're going to go find some belts and get all that dialed in. We're going to make an appointment, and we're going to get it over to the AC shop. But there's one more thing I want to show you. Look at how nice this light is. Man, I could have used that while working on Tim's truck. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Timber!